swim run for me is an experience first, but then also I think the performance side is important, that you try and go to the best of your ability. And, if that means finishing in 14 hours, that's 14 hours. If it's 8 or 9 hours, it's 8 or 9 hours.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swim Run podcast. I'm Chip.
I'm Chris, and this is episode 196 of the show. It's been long overdue, but we're super stoked to finally welcome Fred Newton into the show this week. He's the editor of Swimrun.com, a swimrun evangelist like us, and a terrific human being. Not like us, way better than us. We chatted about all kinds of swimrun-related topics, and we can't wait to share this conversation with all of you.
But first, training update. So we're starting our last training block of the year as we head towards Ödyssey, Swimrun, Austin at Pace Bend Park. It's in Texas, by the way. So
Yes,
we're stoked.
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas for all y'alls. This is the final race as the Ödyssey brand before they transition over to the Attila brand. We're super stoked to close out the swimrun season for a fourth time at this event, and stoked to be able to drop some training volume. It's been nice.
Yeah, it has been nice.
It's like, hour run. I'm like, gladly do an hour run there.
And obviously it goes without saying that we encourage everyone who is, dare I say, Swimrun-curious to join us. This race is super beginner-friendly. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
The swims are non-technical. You can just all along coastline. So if deep water's your issue, you're right there. Sign up.
Yeah, not overly technical terrain, very approachable. Always have a good turnout for Pace Bend, Austin Swimrun there. So hopefully to see you all there. The Low Tide Boys will be there, as we just mentioned.
Yeah, and we'll be doing. So we did Ödyssey when it was Swimrun USA. Now we're doing
every
it as Ödyssey,
iteration of
and then we're gonna do it as Attila. So that'll be cool.
Maybe it's quite the evolution on that front. Now, for this week's Shoutout.
Yeah, this week we're shouting out everyone that participated in Eskina's Mustard's Survivor Swimrun over the weekend. This event featured a fun format where individuals raced a 3K lap course with 3 swim sections and 4 run sections in the beautiful River Nene, the Nene River. In, I can't remember the name of the town, but it was Cambridgeshire Port.
Shireton, Port Townsend Smith.
Just lost all our UK listeners. The time for each lap gets progressively shorter until there's just one racer left. So kind of last man standing style. Pretty fun. It looked like fun was had by all.
It did. I saw the videos on there. I like someone put it DNF guaranteed. We love Eskina's Mustard team, Chelsea and Nikki Bailey out there, mother and daughter team.
Crushing
it out there on this new format. It was the last couple laps, people were like getting out of the last swim and like walking up the hill, like they were pressing like 1 minute till start. It was I was really enjoying it on that, and it looked like a really fun event to watch.
Yeah, I got a mini race report from Mr. B.
Oh, Mr. B,
because I commented on some, was like, that looked like a blast, and he just gave me the quick lowdown. So yeah, awesome stuff.
Love to hear it. Now for this week's feats of endurance. So this week's winner is Lucas Hetzel, who decided to YOLO it meaning you only live once, and sign up for a
for
race.
The tragically unhip out there.
for our personal, we know this, but for everyone else, you only live once is YOLO.
In case my mom's listening.
To sign up and race a half marathon with no training over the weekend in Milwaukee. Strong work on both some questionable decision making and finishing in a great result. Now, where do we see about Lucas's feats of endurance? Well, we are in the Low Tide Boys Strava Club. So head on over to Strava, search Low Tide Boys, and follow along with swim runners from around the world as they train for stuff, including YOLO half marathons or Eskina's Mustard Survivor swim runs and everything in between and beyond.
Yeah.
Now,
or not at all.
Or whatever. I mean, or like me, my family walk around the block for 30 minutes was on Strava today. Dole out a couple kudos, receive a couple kudos on that. Now for a little bit of show business. Well, if you are headed to maybe Ödyssey Swimrun Austin and you're thinking, man, I really need a wetsuit, or you're like, I have 3 wetsuits in my garage. I need to get rid of these things. Head on over to Facebook, search Swimrun Swap Meet. It's a group that we've made to share, buy, and sell swimrun equipment. So people pop in there. Hey, I need a wetsuit for this. Hey, I have an extra buoy. And it's swim runners all around. We have, we're approaching 700 now in this group. So really awesome.
Yeah, we're currently at the inauspicious 666.
Sign of the beast. So someone, I mean, that people are joining every week.
That's great.
A handful of folks. So really, really cool to see that in there. So if you have some swim run equipment that's collecting dust in your garage, throw it on the swim run swap meet and pass it on down the line to the next person so they can get into the sport at low to no cost.
Yeah.
Well, we know a few things about Austin and Texas. It's particularly hot.
Yes.
So we're making sure that we're fueled and hydrated up to the gills at Austin Pace Bend, and we can't do this without our support of the friends at Precision Fuel and Hydration. They have a free race nutrition planning tool online now. They even have swim run as a specific sport.
So cool.
So you can go in there and you say you're doing a swim run, you put in some of your numbers, and they'll recommend a training plan, or not a training plan, a fuel and hydration plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
John,
they're also actually building out their database too. So pretty soon you'll be able to just select the swim run that you're doing, and it'll already know that. So you won't have to enter distance. All that.
I love that. So we love the planning tool. One of our friends, John from the Concho Boyz, used this for Attila. He put his numbers in there, and he's like, "Wow, apparently I need a lot of fuel." We're like, "Yes, we've been telling you this." So head on over to Precision Fuel and Hydration, and of course they're hooking it up with a 15% off code for your first order.
Yeah, Low Tide 23.
Thank you, Chris.
Or just use the link in our show notes.
Yeah, lowtideboys.com. Find the episode and the links in there, and that will take you right to the page to get you 15% off there. I'm going caffeine gel, a couple 90s in there. And, of course, we always like preloading with a little 1500. Mm-hmm. Just keep everything topped up, especially when it's going to be a little bit warmer.
Yep. Why take any chances?
I don't. Certainly not going to. So thank you again to the fine folks at Precision Fuel and Hydration. Now, over to our conversation with the Swimrun.com editor himself, Mr. Fred Newton.
Yeah, it was so great to chat with Fred. I mean, we've been communicating with him on the internets for a while, so it was fun to finally spend some kind of quality time with him in Studio G. In this conversation, we chatted about when he drank the Swimrun Kool-Aid, how he himself... How he found himself at Swimrun.com as the editor, his recent Attila experience, and we also got into sort of nitty gritty on how to grow the sport in the U.S. and abroad, and so much more. And I have to say, Chipper, first time we really hung out with him was on Uta. I think we saw him before, chatted up a little bit, but it was actually after Attila where we actually had a proper chat.
Yeah,
and it just confirmed everything I already felt about the guy.
He's a real swell fella, I'll say that.
He's a mensch.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Fred is one of these guys that we were like, how have we not? We're at 196 and we haven't chatted with him yet. We have to correct this injustice immediately.
And we know there's a lot of people out there. So, Martin Flintas of the world, we have you on our radar. We're going to get to you.
So anyway, again, I agree, Chris. Great conversation with Fred. Really a great guy, and yeah, we got into some conversation that we don't normally get into with folks on the show, so it's something a little bit different for everybody. But all in all, Swim Run Love Fest, as we tend to do here on the Low Tide Boys.
This is what people come for, they're not coming for...
They come for the swim run, and that's the only thing we give them. That and a few,
that's all we have to offer.
A few poor jokes. But without further ado, let's kick it over to our conversation with Fred Newton, Swimrun.com editor.
Stay tuned for the upcoming yearly awards.
Oh, yeah. Swimrun.com awards.
Yeah.
Awarding things of swimrun in nature and such.
Very excited for this conversation. It's one that we've been wanting to have for a long time, and we've basically been having it offline for a while now.
True.
Welcome to the show, Fred Newton of Swimrun.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm really pleased to speak to you guys. Long-term fan of the show, so it's a real privilege to.
Well, the privilege is ours, and we were talking before we went on air that few people can understand what it's like to be totally immersed in swimrun and just almost like obsessed with it. And we were talking maybe we should start our own little support group on micro influencers producing content for swimrun. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at swimrun.com and sort of how you found and developed your obsession with swimrun?
Yeah, sure. It sort of started almost by accident and perhaps by quite an unconventional route, really. So I was a sort of media professional, a little bit bored of the office job, and this opportunity came up with this company called Brecca Swimrun, which at the time it was the second largest organizer in the world after Ödyssey. Sadly, no longer with us, the Brecca Swimrun races. But this partnerships job came up to essentially try and get some sponsors for the race, try and persuade some tourist boards to part with some cash to bring races to new locations. And it seemed really cool. So I sort of went for this events-based role for this events company. I had no real idea of what the sport was about. And I thought actually during the interview process, hey, I should probably do a swimrun race.
You should probably figure out what this whole thing, what it is.
Figure out what this thing is. So I did one, and it was just a small one. But to date, I'd say it's the hardest race I've done. It was perhaps a 10K race, and I was in a full-length wetsuit, pair of trainers, no flotation, pretty lousy swimmer, and just about got round the course. I mean, it was tough out there on the River Thames, so it was a tricky race. But then the standout moment for me, which happened after the race, is actually all of us who participated stuck around at the end, and we were like having a coffee, cheering on the other competitors as they came in. And we were all on this finish line for what felt like a good few hours. And it was just unlike anything I'd really been involved with before from a sporting perspective, just a real sense of a community, being part of something. And actually, that's been true of every other event that I've participated in or been involved with since. It's got this real sense of like warm friendship is how I describe it, and a real sense of we're in this together. And yeah, from there it was just a pleasure to sort of be part of the sport, and that first experience hasn't changed over the years. It really is a good friendly sport, as I'm sure you guys know and appreciate.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. And it's some time ago we talked to one John Littlewood, who had just acquired Swimrun.com, the domain, and he was I think still ideating what this was going to be. Maybe it was an app, maybe it was some sort of training group program. And then it sort of went quiet for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it kind of really shot up again. And it's a blog, it's a place for people to find information about swimrun, and there's a lot of content. And then your name on the byline there for pretty much a vast majority of the article. So how did that come about from this Brecca partnership job, which we were assuming that you got the job, and then hopefully you got the job, and then taking the leap now to, I guess, is your official title editor-in-chief, head editor? What's the what does your placard say on the office?
The placard on the door, it says editor and co-founder of Swimrun.com.
Awesome.
But, there are a couple of us in it, so it's it's a lofty title for.
I like it.
Sort of content. So I met John for the first time at a race, and he's a super enthusiastic guy. He's totally obsessed with equipment. So I don't know how many shoes he's got, but he's got all the shoes, he's got all the gear. And actually his initial idea for Swimrun.com was to set it up as a shop. and to sell wetsuits, to sell pool buoys and paddles through swimrun.com. I think he quickly appreciated, and won't mind me saying this, that setting up a shop has lots of challenges. You have to own a lot of stock and kit. It's a tough gig. So we met at a race. We became friends and met up for a coffee, and said, actually, John, why don't we have a go at making a media platform and a place for folks to find out about the sport. And I think there are lots of people doing some really good things in the industry. I mean, you guys are superb. We love Swimrun France and what these guys are about. And so we thought, this is fantastic to help share sort of content, news about the swimrun world. John can do more on his gear stuff because he loves gear so much.
New shoe testing post every week from John Littlewood.
Yeah, he's a pretty bad contributor to the site, actually. Like, I have to really chase him hard, but he does sort of contribute in other ways. So he's got lots of ideas sort of floating around. But anyway, John and I, we bounced off well against each other. We teamed up for a lot of races last year, which was good fun. And we just have a lot of fun with it, actually. It's you can kind of go in the direction that you sort of feel like on any given month. So actually, during the summer, it's very much about race season. In the off season, it's a little bit more about gear and finding out about new races. And it's been a fantastic way to get to know the sport a lot better. And actually going out to Sweden for the first time and going on to Uto and seeing, wow, the birthplace of the sport was just awesome. It was quite mesmerizing. And if you try to explain it to someone outside of swimrun, they just don't care,
Right. I totally agree with you. It's like a spiritual experience, right? In a way, it's like, hey, here's something that we really love that's super cool. Oh, and this is where it originated. I mean, there's this, I'm sure people feel the same way about Kona and things like that for triathlon or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I remember the early days of swimrun.com. I think one of our first interactions, Fred, was, hey, you guys have these articles on triathlete. Can I just rewrite them a little bit and post them up? And I was like, yep, go ahead, have fun, have fun with that. And one thing I appreciate about swimrun.com in particular is, there's so many of us that are trying to do whatever we can to help grow the sport. Obviously, race directors are doing that. We're trying to do the podcast. There's Swimrun Watch is doing the stats, and there's a bunch of people out there that are just doing their part, right? But I feel like swimrun.com is such a unique place because so many people search on the internet and so many people are just trying to get this information from somewhere. Do you feel, have you seen sort of with swimrun.com, like it's really becoming like a source for people to get a lot of information?
Yeah, I think it's used a lot by beginners to sort of find out about stuff, actually. So, I mean, just looking at people who sign up to the newsletter, I don't know, maybe 1 in 10 have actually done a swimrun race. So the vast bulk of people are kind of interested in the sport but haven't necessarily taken a plunge. So I think a lot of what I've found is actually people really care about gear and actually what they have to wear. And then races. And I think races is a really interesting one because actually, even if you're quite embedded in the sport, I think you're quite siloed into your kind of different country or different area or sort of different sphere. And actually, it's quite hard to know about some other great some smaller races which are happening all over the world. So that's another thing we're trying to do is just showcase a little bit more about this wider industry outside of Ertolo. What can you do in Japan, for example, or what you can do in Italy? So I think it's a broad sport, and that's also part of the challenge that swimrun wears lots of different types of hats, and it's not just one thing. But it's a fun sport to write about. The The imagery, I think there is nothing better out there than the imagery you get from swimrun. To paraphrase, I think Andy Blow just said that the imagery, what you see is what you really get. It's not like souped up. It really is that good.
Yeah, I love the focus on the different races, and that's an area that Chris and I, especially here in the US, really try to lean into. Is these mom and pop races or these local races are really what is going to fuel sort of the growth. I mean, not everybody that does swim run has dreams and aspirations of doing the world championship or even a World Series distance. They just want to go out there and give it all they got for 8Ks and spend an hour and a half out there, 2 hours, and just feel like they had a good day out there and go and tell their coworkers about this crazy thing that they did. And they're good for like 1 or 2 of those a year. And that's their level of involvement, and that's where they want to be. And that's totally fine. And that's where these local races really help kind of spread the word. And I know in the UK, where you're based out of, there's so many great ones there, especially I think some of our favorites is Keen as Mustard. They have quite the series, quite the robust series now out there. I feel like
and also and leaning into beginners, right? Like they're not trying to, they just want to get people into the sport. Like some of their test events I think are really great. Yeah.
I definitely agree, guys. Like as Keen as Mustard they're fantastic beginner-friendly events. I had a good and a bad moment, actually, at one of their races recently, where a guy wearing a pair of swimming shorts and just a T-shirt overtook me. I questioned my choices. You've got all this fancy gear on, but someone's just running past you in their beachwear. But that's also awesome. That's great. They've brought new people into the sport. They're happy to try it. They're happy to give it a go. And that's where the growth is going to come from. I mean, we need to, much as I like the fact the community is small, and you see lots of familiar faces, I think we need lots of new blood coming in and getting hooked on it.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about races. So I think one of the really interesting features of swimrun, and obviously we've all drank the Kool-Aid, is the fact that every race is different, right? There isn't 2 races that are going to be the same. You're dealing with the nature that's around you. And which obviously that's why on the site you talk about a lot of races, because they're all different. So you're trying to give people a flavor of what's out there and what's possible. But do you think that unlike triathlon where it's pretty standard, it'll be different locations, but the distances are pretty standard. The aid station situation's pretty standard. Do you think that it helps grow? Do you think that's good for the sport, or do you think it makes the barrier to entry higher because, it's always an unknown for every single race that you do on some level?
It's a really good question, Chris. I actually think it can be a little bit problematic. I think there is a big difference between sort of Michael Lamel, Matt Scott, Ursula style race, which is a real hard-nosed, adventure race, versus turning up and doing a short course in and out of a lake multiple times. I mean, I think there is absolutely room for both and all, and it's a broad church. I'm really interested, actually, if someone who does a really short race would be interested in doing an adventure style race, or actually they fit into a slightly different bucket of swim runners. I think, just to share my biggest bugbear with you guys about the sport, is that swimrun is a discipline, and we need to call it, I think, by its proper name, which is swimrun, and not wreck the name of swimrun. It's not swim run, it's not swim dash run, etc. I really think we should call it by its proper name and get organised behind it. And I know Michael has been talking a little bit about possible sort of federations or wider bodies, and lots of people are quite resistant to bringing it into a federation. But maybe that's one of the things the sport needs to have a look at to grow.
Well, and get a bit. Let me ask you a follow up there, because I think the counterpoint to that, I think, would be France. I mean, France basically federalized swim run under the Triathlon Federation, been putting a lot of money behind it. They've, talk about tourism boards, like they're putting up money to put events in different locations. And you've seen really the sport explode in France. And, we were all, three of us were at the World Championship, now almost a month ago. And there were more,
almost 100 athletes.
There were more French teams than Swedish teams. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's really doing well in France, and there are lots of races. I think it's a bit easier in France because it sits under their adventure sports kind of arm of triathlon, which, I mean, we don't have in the UK. I'm not sure what you guys have got in the US.
Nothing like that.
Nope.
Yeah, no chance.
No.
It's too small. It's too small. Like, I don't think USA Triathlon, which is, I guess, our federation, I'm sure they know it exists because people still need to get triathlon insurance to put on these events in the US for the most part. But, it's too small. It's probably less than 1% or something.
Not enough money for them to get too excited about it right now, I think, is the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think so going back to the question, so in France it looks like having it under the Triathlon Federation has been good for the growth of the sport. I wonder, do you think that that's just like an outlier and maybe France was able to do it for the reasons you mentioned? Or do you think that that more countries should think about creating some sort of governing body to either standardize things or at least have some common, I don't know,
force behind it?
Yeah. I think looking at the triathlon story is quite interesting, actually, that the World Triathlon Union certainly helped develop triathlon into a sport on a long-term basis. Whether too many rules and regulations could kill off swimrun, that's a risk, that actually people say, no, it's unsafe and you have to have this amount of water safety, for example, therefore races can't operate, is a risk. And I think most organisers are quite resistant to it becoming under an umbrella which just adds red tape and bureaucracy to it. So really, I think we need more people in the sport first. So more people doing races, probably more races, and get swimrun a bit more mainstream. I'm not sure how that happens, whether that's back on TV again, wheeling you guys out to do the Low Tide Boys World Tour.
World Tour, okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely make T-shirts for that.
Yeah, stickers incoming. Awesome. Yeah, I definitely interesting discussion, and especially here in the States, as being such an expansive country, and it's not necessarily, I think one thing about Europe is everything seems relatively accessible from a shorter, quote unquote, 3 to 4 hour plane travel to a fair amount of races. And here in the United States, Chris and I being on the West Coast, there's really only maybe a handful of races on the West Coast, which is California is one of the largest triathlon communities in the United States, but there's no swim runs really in California, save for a very small local race in Folsom.
Which is great. It's lovely. But, there should be 20 races in California, not one.
Yeah. So I think that's hampering it a little bit. And then I would agree with your points there about the red tape. I mean, I think the United States is particularly difficult for permitting different events, especially an event that's to somebody that doesn't fully grasp and understand what it is. Like the complexity of a swim run is sort of maybe hard to explain to somebody, and they get really it's too abstract for them to sort of understand when dishing out permits.
I can give you an example. So there's a race in Massachusetts that ended up being canceled because of a hurricane, because because shit sucks. So Swimrun Cape Cod, and the race director was reaching out to us, and we're trying to help him out and all this stuff. And they asked us a question. It's like, well, our water safety people are worried about mandating the tether because they're worried about people like strangling each other and things like that in the water. And it was just, it's, I honestly didn't even know how to respond. I was like, you know what? I've never seen that happen. I don't think it's a real concern. I can understand swimming with ropes might be weird, but like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's actually safer if you have it. Like, it seems so out of left field, but this is kind of what you're dealing with, where it's, if you have no knowledge of the sport as a permitting agency, it can be really hard to just convince people that this isn't a ridiculous thing. I mean, and then you do some of the races in Europe and you're like, how, in the US, we're like,
no chance.
There is no, like the World Championships.
Yeah.
It's just
there's just no way. There's no way. The insurance people would just blow their brains out, I think.
So, I mean, that's why federations could be a good thing, because it kind of standardizes it and gives it a blueprint for the insurance companies or people to understand things.
And sort of keeping on the same vein a little bit, I really get excited about sort of this circuit heat style racing that is EX Swimrun that has popped up in Sweden. About you have maybe a 1K run and then a 600-meter swim or some sort of swim, and it's a circuit that you do multiple times. Fans and folks can have visibility on the whole course, and it's very controllable. It's very easy to understand what's happening. And I really think that idea is something that could get a lot of legs, especially here in the U.S., because it is a little bit like, okay, we're going to have 2 swims, but we can see them all, and we just need a few kayaks. And here's the runs; it's a little bit quicker. Yeah, it's not the grandiose World Series Tala style race, but it is a little bit of the flavor that we all know and love, that can sort of get people hooked and like, hey, I really like that. I want to do that for 6 hours. Okay, we got that for you too, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that style of a race really kind of take off too much outside of the EX Swimrun piece. But I certainly think that's an interesting avenue that I'd love to see more races of.
It sure is. And the UK, we've got our first EX style race coming up next week, which is the Keen as Mustard Survivor.
Nice.
3K loop course. It's a knockout competition. So yeah, I think they sound fun. I haven't done any myself before. The one in France does really well, the Yotta XP. My partner Benoit from the World Championship, he went there and loved it. He said, "You've got to come to Yotta XP." And I was a little bit worried there'd be too many French.
Yeah, I mean that's always a worry now, I guess, over there. Now let's talk a little bit about sort of the UK scene, which is they're one of our biggest download audiences. Usually they flip flop second and third between Sweden. US is first, and then UK and Sweden kind of flip flop second and third. We've been paying attention to it since we started the show. There seems like there's so many events happening. The Wales back to back that you can do. There's Coniston just happened. There's seems like Hokey. Yeah, I mean it just seems like there's just a lot going on. Is that how? I mean, you being there, does it feel like there's a lot going on? And do you feel like the sport is really growing in the UK?
I think in the UK, I mean, firstly, we'd love to adopt you guys and bring you over to the UK.
Oh, we talk about world tour. We're doing like a UK tour. We're trying to line up like a couple weeks and try to get 4 races in or some crazy. We'll see.
Sounds good.
Sporty.
I think the really distinct thing about the UK, it's got lots of different types of swim run races. So we've got some really long courses, we've got some really short courses, coastal, inland lakes. And actually, anyone in an organising capacity, people are collaborating here. So they are lending each other kit, helping each other with marketing. There's a real drive from the collective UK, organising crew to actually push the sport forwards and help it develop. So that's a positive thing. And I think it's very different actually to Swedish style races. In the UK, I think it's fair to say we're talking about longer swims and longer run sections. So it's less in and out and about the transition. it suits you if you're a good swimmer and and a decent sort of trail runner. But transitions perhaps a little less important for most UK races. But yeah, it's a good, active, thriving scene, and I hope it continues to grow further.
Yeah, we're definitely want to get over there and try it out. And we're definitely in the all tides lift all ships, or whatever the saying is. I love the alignment of the efforts. There's no reason. It's not a competition of like, hey, if Hokey Cokey promotes as keen as mustard, like that's not going to hurt the Hokey Cokey races. That's probably only going to help them by getting more people introduced to it. And that's something, that I think everyone should try to embrace within the community. If you're a race director listening in, try to get more bodies out there.
Yeah, I mean, and the communication's good. I remember, was it earlier this year where there was like, there aren't enough races for there to be 2 races on the same day. Like in the UK, it was like, all right, we'll intervene, a convention of something to make sure at least they're a day apart or something. But
yeah. And Fred, you're not just pounding away on the keyboard all day either. You're getting out there. You're getting into it yourself. You just recently finished off on the Swimrun World Championship. We had a great day out there. I don't know if our paths crossed at all, but we shared a few hours sitting on a bench, which was nice after the race with some coffee. So, how was your experience at Ödyssey this year? First one, right?
Yeah, first one at Ödyssey. I was terrified, actually, guys. It's such a beast, and I got really worked up about it. And I didn't tell my partner, but I managed to break my toe a few weeks before at the Rockman race. But I thought, I'm going to keep this quiet, and I'm not saying
I'm going to stifle this story. Right at the editor's desk, yes.
Exactly. But then he texted me the week before the race just saying, hey, I've actually got an injury myself. I've got like a leg injury. So we're just going to see how it goes. And it's pretty hard when you're at the start of the race and you're both perhaps a little bit injured. But we got into it and we sort of moved through the course and sort of kept progressing and moving forward. And yeah, we loved it. Benoit Charrier, my partner, he was so much fun, dancing his way around the course. He was telling me some stories of his early love life in great detail on Orno.
Exquisite detail?
Wow.
Oh, it
Off
was
the
detailed.
record, I assume, yeah.
But it was incredible. It was really, it really, I think, frames what the whole sport's about. I think, and understanding that original journey and bet, and those 4 guys who did it, they were quite brave, don't you think? Like, actually,
I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
No
especially they went the other way. I mean. Yeah. When you meet them, you can kind of see it's like, all right, these guys are just Swedes are a little bit different. They're all seem to be super fit and like another species of human or something. But yeah, just to think it's like, oh yeah, let's just see how far we can go. On the one hand, it seems insane, but on the other, it's I've mentioned this on the show before. It's like when you go out there, it almost makes it seems obvious that the sport would be invented there because you have all these cool islands. They're really close by. The water's swimmable, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna swim over there, see what happens, and you just kind of keep going. So it's such a unique thing. But yeah, I mean, the original 4. I mean, it's
especially taking them 24 hours or maybe even over a day out there. Hungover to boot, so that's it's not advisable. I'm sure no coach would advise upon that.
Yeah, I mean, have you guys? I called up with your recap show, which was excellent and just beautifully described. I thought the different moments that you both had in an amusing way, I might add. You've had a month. Is it a month? Yeah,
almost.
I think so.
Almost a month to reflect on it. How do you guys feel about the World Champs? Does it still have the allure and appeal for you?
It's a good question. I think I feel like, speaking for myself, I didn't have the best race for the reasons people have heard, but I still feel like accomplished, and I feel like I kind of got it out of my system, in the sense that you do it once and you're like you super nervous, like it's a beast. It's everything that it's as hard as anything that you can do in a day, right? But going back and doing it a second time and feeling like went in prepared, went in with a good plan, and yeah, it went a little bit sideways for us, but we still had a good day. I feel like, do I want to go back and do it again at some point? But I don't feel like this burning thing, like got to go back. I have to, beat that time, or I have to put in the performance that I thought we were capable of. I feel like, I want other people to do the race.
Yeah.
For a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this a little bit. I mean, the way that we approached both years that we did it, I mean, we only go pretty much all in on everything, if that's not obvious, as we approach 200 episodes on this thing, in 3+ years. So, like the investment from not just ourselves, but training, money, family, time, like it's a deep investment. And I think we both were really enjoying the race this year, because we had agreed that this was going to be it for at least. We're going to take a pause. We don't know when we're going to unpause, or press play again. It will happen. I think we would be, it would be silly for us to say never again. But yeah, I think we were both were trying to be really present, and that it was like, hey, this is it for a bit, for this specific race, because it is so demanding. And then there's so many other races that we want to do around. I mean, we want to go to the UK. Obviously, Engadin is on our list there as well. We haven't raced Orca Islands, which is like the only West Coast swim run in a few years, and that one we really like. So there's just so much to do, and being able to have a little bit more flexibility in the calendar is nice on that front. So
yeah, I mean, it feels super liberating to feel like, the longest race we'll do will probably only take us 6 hours.
Yeah.
It just makes it, I mean, that is a ridiculous statement, as my wife will always tell me, but it's true. When you think about it, it's like, all right, this isn't like a 10 to 13 hour thing that you're training for. It's half that. It just makes it seems so much more manageable from a training perspective.
But it is such an amazing experience. And, once you've done it, it either sort of breaks you and you're like, never again, or you're like, okay, if you're anyway minded this way, you're like, okay, I can fix these 35 things and probably improve.
well, let's flip it back to you, Fred. So,
we're asking the questions here, Fred.
Yeah, it's our show. You're the guest. Flipping it back to you, like, how do you feel about it? You mentioned it was an amazing experience. Do you want to do it again? I mean, you've done 2 of the hardest swim runs in the same year with Rockman and Attila. Do you want to do it again? Are you trying to go for like the one water race or something? Like, you just want to keep going bigger?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do think about this. So swim run for me is an experience first, but then also I think the performance side is important, that you try and go to the best of your ability, and if that means finishing in 14 hours, that's 14 hours. If it's 8 or 9 hours, it's 8 or 9 hours. I like doing new things, actually. So I really enjoy with swimrun that you can go to different locations, places that you wouldn't go normally. There's this parachuted in community you can chat to and have a good time with, and you can see something cool and something a bit different. So yeah, I think got half an eye on Engadin next year, and the one water race just looks crazy, crazy scary.
Too far. Too far on that one. And we have all the the new Attila race is coming up next year in the United States, so we're really excited about that news. I saw you had Swimrun.com had a nice interview with Lars and getting his take on things. Not that we're the only representation from the swimrun voice in the U.S., but we're definitely excited about what this means for the sport and elevating the awareness of swimrun here with the branding of Attila is certainly going to help. And we can't help but hear 5 to 6 races being touted around in the U.S., but we only see 4. So that has us very excited that there's possibility of 2, potentially up to 2 more races coming next year. So,
and one in California, possibly.
That's what we keep hearing, but it's kind of like, we
don't want to get too excited.
Like, we're afraid to get hurt again. Like, we are definitely early to the Stoke. So,
Yes.
John Littlewood is one. It's like, Brecca's coming back. We're stoked. Let's get you on the show. Okay, but Brecca isn't coming back. Or, Ben Swimrun, Ben Racing is putting on 2 events. Let's get you on the show. Let's hype these things up. Okay, those races aren't happening. So there's Swimrun Whistler. We're super stoked. Like, it's a week later. It's like not happening. Yeah. It's like, what is going on? It's like, so, it's kind of like World Cup soccer where, except that happens every 4 years where you're ready to get your heart broken again. Or, every 2 years if you count the Euro Cup or whatever. But it's like, we still put ourselves out there because it's so important for the sport. And again, we want to have new experiences and races in California. I mean, that's so much easier for us to, convince our wives to let us do than, we're going to go on tour in the UK for a week and a half and we're going to hit Wales and who knows where else. So having more events would be great. But I'm curious, like, do you think, based on kind of what you've seen in the UK in the growth of the sport, do you think the Attila brand is going to really move the needle in the US, or do you still think we need more of the mom and pop sort of Keenest Mustard style, very accessible, like gear check type races to really grow it in the US?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited that Attila's coming to the US. I think it's the well-known premium swimrun brand. The guys in the team are clearly very motivated to make a success of it. So I think you need that. You need I hate to compare the two, but you need an Ironman type brand which is really flying that flag and getting people interested. So I think that's important, and then not neglecting the grassroots. And the grassroots certainly grows the base of the sport. Without it, you haven't got any swim runners. But you guys, you've got so many triathletes, trail runners, adventure races. You've got so many potential swim runners, I think, in the US that actually it's just a case of bringing them together, having more races, as you both said, so more accessible races in most of the states. Maybe not Alaska. But,
yeah, bear warnings. You got to carry some bear spray with you. Yeah, it is a very, like, it's a chicken and an egg quandary, right? And I've noticed here, especially, Attila has gotten some press when Catalina happened. There was a New York Times article about that and different things there. But I guess the way I could see it being talked about, this is the quote-unquote Iron Man of swimrun branding coming over here, and that is going to have a lot of interest. And that's also going to have other race directors who are doing these mom-and-pop sort of triathlons like, hey, I know my local terrain and my local feature set on trails and water. I can do one of these things here and capitalize on some of this upswing in awareness to the sport. At a relatively low barrier to entry for a race director. I mean, we've seen some of these races come out that, hey, we have a sprint and a super sprint triathlon, but by the way, like an hour after we send off the swim, we have a little like swim run circuit we're going to do that's utilizing one of the swims and a few of the trails around sort of thing, and just kind of add on another event or two. And I think that's a pretty smart way to do it. So it is a little bit chicken the egg in my opinion. But again, we're in the time that I think any news is good news at this point.
Yeah. And I think so I had an opinion about that at first because I was like, I used to work similar to you, Fred, in sort of the event partnership space and stuff and the op space. And I was just like, oh, these triathlon race directors are just going to try to like cannibalize some of this money and just like slap on a swim run to their existing events.
Yeah.
But actually what I've seen, so the triathlon race directors that have been putting on swim runs, the courses have been really thoughtful. They've been really fun.
Yeah, they get it.
They might never have done a swim run before, but for example, this Folsom Swim Run, the organization that does that puts on that event, Total Body Fitness, they put on gravel, just all kinds of random events, mostly triathlon and trail running and stuff. And without ever putting on a swim run, I mean, they put a pretty cool event, like understood what transition should look like, where an aid station should be. So to me, that's just very encouraging. Same thing with Swimrun Cape Cod. I mean, that race ended up not happening, but the course was really, really cool the way they designed it, and really were trying to put in experience. And again, the race directors had never done a swim run, but it seemed very in the ethos of the type of experience that swim runners typically get. So I think that's super encouraging, and hopefully that continues. But I just, I did notice that sort of my assumptions were definitely checked at the door, and I need to give triathlon race directors more credit, I think.
Yeah. Okay. No, point well made.
Yeah. And we're marketers, so we can't help it. But when you think about like, what's the largest target audience for swim run, that seems to be the highest conversion rate from whatever sport they're at to converting to do a swim run. It's got to be triathletes with this sort of adventure sense, or like, hey, I want to mix it up a little bit. I'm a little bit, not that I'm burnt out on triathlon. I still like triathlon, but I want something a little different. Like those people, you just got to have them do it once, and they're going to catch the bug, sort of thing. So that's why I think having the bigger brand of Attila here, and that's like, oh, this is the Iron Man kind of thing, like that's I feel like that is going to bring some good momentum.
And I think we saw it in Catalina. I mean, there was tons of like, in California there's a local sort of semi-pro team, Everyman Jack triathlon team. I mean, there was just tons of triathletes who, because it was an Attila event, decided to give it a shot.
Stout. They're like, oh, this is a real pisser, if you will, to get out there. So I think it could be a draw like that. I mean, I don't know if, maybe people understand that it's just Ödyssey rebranded on some of these things, but yeah, I mean, whatever it takes to help grow the sport. And I think, Chipper, I think you're right. I think like the most natural audience are people that are already swimming and running on some level. So that would be triathletes. But I think we're seeing just, if you're a trail runner who enjoys swimming or is curious about swimming, that's an audience as well. Fred, from the inquiries that like swimrun.com gets, like what do you see as sort of like the main kind of demographic coming forward? And it sounds like you were mentioning earlier, like a lot of the questions are about gear, which I guess makes sense when it's a new sport and there's gear involved, but kind of like, if you could sort of read between sort of the comments and the questions that you get, like where do you see this?
Yeah, where's the audience from? I agree with you guys. I think triathletes, open water swimmers, and trail runners. I think you get a lot of triathletes asking specific questions about, I have to swim in my shoes.
We've never gotten that
one. And then, I think it's an inclusive sport as well. So what I love about Swimrun is that you see all sorts of different types of people and body shapes doing these races. I mean, you've got your super fit French and Swedes who kind of fly around. And then you've got sort of people who, they're just sort of normal people, perhaps with a slight dad bod, or they just come out for a bit of a social or something different. So I think it caters. It's got a broad church. But yeah, certainly I was at a race on Saturday in Wales, the Diffie X swim run. and a triathlon club had turned up there. I think they brought about 12 members, and they were all just having a chat and a sort of team photo. So that kind of community engagement, I think, is pretty important. So yeah,
those guys, the Love Swim Run. Is that them?
We got their swim caps.
This is the We Swim Run.
We Swim Run.
That's right. Yeah, we got their swim caps, and they did the World Championship with us as well. So yeah, it was cool. It was cool to meet them. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Fred. But to grow the sport, I mean, it seems like we just need to keep doing what we're doing, and keep the community vibe what it is. Have more events. Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, I'd probably add a third part to it. So have more events, have more people go to these events. And then I know I'm preaching to the converted, but sort of content sharing and people really posting and sharing stuff within their own feeds and their own sort of communities and amongst their own friends. I think, you know, we talk about it being a visual sport. It is a visual sport, and actually we need this imagery. Surely has got to grab anyone who's interested in being outside and in nature would see that and think, wow, that looks pretty cool actually. And I want to give that a go. So the more content we have out in the world, I think is a good thing. I think we need more high profile people, you know, doing the sport as well, and it was cool to see the Iron Cowboy do the Ödyssey.
Yeah.
This year, I did wave at him, but he sort of he had his game face on, and yeah, I thought I saw there was talk of sort of Will Smith and other like kind of celebrities doing swimrun last year, maybe one of the Ödyssey races. I don't think that happened, but I think, you know, getting the message out there, we need to amplify the message, and just keep being consistent as well. And you guys mentioned you see lots of races and events having a bit of a false start and kind of disappearing. And I think consistency is important. So, you know, swimrun.com, Low Tide Boys, you're in it for the long haul. I'm sure you have days when you're sort of recording or traveling when you think, God, do I really have to be doing this today? And it's something else. So I think, yeah, consistently we need to keep on pushing, and I think it will boom. I don't think it will be before 2030. Is Fred's prediction is that it will take another 7 years to really become a big thing. But I don't think we're too far away. I think we just need to keep on pushing, really.
Okay. Well, you heard it here. Episode 725 in 2030 of the Low Tide Boys will be the biggest download yet.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can't. There's no way. There's no way. I mean, I've been saying for years, like, we got to land this plane at some point. I don't know when, but there has to be a landing.
But you guys, you enjoy what you do.
We enjoy it, but it's also hard work, right? I mean, I'm sure you'll feel the same way. I mean, you got to edit stuff. We're treating this like a publication, rain or shine. The show must go on, and it's a labor of love for sure. And we do love the sport, and we go to events, and no pun intended, like, we're buoyed by everyone who comes up to us and finds value and everything. And for a while, when we started the show, people come up, it's like, oh, we listened to everything. We did everything you said. And then we just like hold our breath. And then and everything worked out great. And we're like, oh, thank God. Oh, It's like, thank God we didn't lead you astray kind of thing. Now I think we're a little bit more confident in our messaging, and we're like, feel like we can stand on our own 2 feet in terms of what we advise on the most part. But it's still really interesting. Like the sport still has a lot of space for creativity and sort of individualism or individuality. And you see at the World Champs, there's still people using tiny pool buoys. Yeah. There's still people like rocking old style, like Gen 1 suits and having a great time. So I think in that respect, it's cool to see that the sport is still so young.
Yeah.
but it is a lot of work to continually try to put out content and try to make it interesting and follow our curiosity. And I mean, we feel that with their memes, it's like, you know, I think this is real talk. There's been a little bit of a lull on the memes just because it's like, I mean, for a while there, we're pumping out a meme a day for about, 1,000 days in a row kind of thing. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's hard. It's hard to keep the same enthusiasm. But whenever we go to events, I feel like, and I know I can speak for Chipper here, it's like our cup overfloweth with enthusiasm just from interacting with everyone.
Brings you right back to it. Yeah. And Chris, I think this is a nice segue into briefly talking about our Swimrun Awards, which are coming up.
Let's talk about it.
Get in there.
We're previous winners, full disclosure.
And judges, which I don't know, that can't be on the up and up at all. I don't know who's overseeing that, Fred. But
I think we recused ourselves from that category.
Okay.
No, I mean it's part of it. I mean there's no corruption here. So yeah, the Swimrun Awards they're back, and thank you guys for your judges again this year. And it's just a chance at end of season really. Vote for sort of favourite races. We've introduced some new categories, so some country-specific races, some race of the year, if you like. And yeah, there were some surprises last year, which was actually really cool to see. And so awards will open again. Nominations will open next month, and then people can vote on it in the month of December. So get voting, and thank you guys for coming on as an independent channel.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be super fun. It was great to see how many people, from just looking back on last year, like how many people voted. I was really impressed. Just like, wow, like people are actually, a lot of people out there were sort of paying attention to this. And with Swimrun, it's, I always try to stay in reality on just like really how small the sport is. Like when you're in it, and you love it, that's all you kind of think about. But if you really zoom out, it's such a small piece of sort of the endurance or pie of what people do. So it was great to see so much interaction there. It actually inspired us to do our gear awards last year as well. I mean, ours were just totally ridiculous, and
it's our own twist.
It's
our own twist.
It wasn't an objective process at all, but yeah, I think like sharing that type of content is really interesting, and like anything, it can inspire people to do events. I know I was really surprised that the the Solo Swimmer World Championship was voted one of the most popular events and things like that, and it was like, oh, well, I wouldn't even have thought of that. So it's great to see what people find value in, and also helps direct our content and things like that, which is always good.
Yeah, certainly. I'm gonna put you on the spot here, guys. This is a difficult question.
Why do you keep asking us questions?
I know, Fred, come on, you've turned the tables on us. I don't like this.
It's the high tide, boy.
Oh yeah.
I've thought about this a lot, and never have crunched the data. But have you guys got an idea of how big do you think the sport is all time? Like, how many thousands of swim runners since that first race in 2006 to 2023? What number do you reckon we are at with all-time swim runners?
Do you have like register? Do you have the answer?
I know I have an idea, but like it's a guess. It's a guess.
I don't know. Back a napkin.
Man. Well, I mean, just the World Championship alone, I mean, for a while it's been 300 people. So you think like, I'd say maybe like 1 million people have done it.
1 million swim runners.
1 million. Yeah. Damn, dude. I was going to say somewhere around maybe 15 to 20K total.
Okay. Much more conservative.
Yeah, I don't.
Is this like Price is Right rules?
Yeah,
just like
$1. Are we talking about like total people that have registered and done a race? I think I would maybe put it at maybe 30 to 50K if you give me a 20,000 If Chris is going 1 million, I'll go 50K.
Well, I'm with you on this, Chip. I think 50 to 100K maybe.
Really? Oh, I don't know. I think it's a million. A million is definitely a lot, but maybe half that, $500,000.
$500,000.
That's probably more still unrealistic, but more realistic than a million.
I'd love
to bring it down a little bit.
Yeah.
50% discount on my initial estimate.
Well, Fred, I mean, I have certainly enjoyed the heck out of this conversation, and you're just such a treat to talk to every time. So we look forward to keeping the conversation going, but be sure you're heading over to swimrun.com. Check out the Swimrun awards. The nominations will open, it sounds like, in November, and then voting in December. That you can find that on our channels as well as swimrun.com. Be sure to go there for all your Swimrun source, different point of view. They got great interviews, course previews, gear recommendations, all sorts of things there, written and otherwise content.
Yeah, and honestly, it's news, it's reporting. I mean, an interview with Michael was really great.
Yep.
You know, as soon as Ödyssey made their announcement with Attila, you guys had a video on that. I mean, it's great. It's what we need. We need more
Absolutely.
of this, and the fact that you guys are doing such a great job in that space is it's helpful for everything. So thank you so much for everything that you do, Fred.
Thanks very much, guys, and right back at you. You know, love the Low Tide Boys. You guys do an awesome job. Please keep going.
Thank you, Connie. Yeah,
we will for a while.
Right. Cool. Swimrun.com. Check it out. Fred, thanks again, man. See you out there.
Cheers, guys.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swimrun.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
too. Of course, yes.